colleagues, Henry Seriake Dixon, Bayelsa West. Mr. President, I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity at least to give my views on this and to inform the Senate in the way and manner you have requested. But before I come to your specific inquiry or question, let me say that I associate myself with this motion, which is bringing to the notice of the Senate a very sad development. But as sad as it is, as dangerous as it is, this is the fate that our people have lived with all these years, since the discovery of oil. And it's not a fate that is peculiar to Bayelsa. It's a fate that is jointly suffered by all communities and states where you have producing facilities. But maybe because Bayelsa is where oil and gas in commercial quantity started, this is not the first time we're having this. We had a Texaco blowout in southern Nigeria, incidentally, the local government of the mover. And so that one occurred twice. And this is the third one we are having. And this, Mr. President and my dear colleagues, is a very massive facility that Shell and this country, the NNPC, the partners, built to trap all the gas, all that is produced in that area, to trap it from Bonny and so on. Then they now send it to sell as liquefied natural gas. But it is located in a place where you have also communities. And that's the challenge, because you have the Bahrain, it's called the Bahrain-Ubie pipeline, but you have the Bahrain communities and the neighboring communities, several of them around. So it was very appropriate that this matter was brought to the notice of the Senate. And now to your specific question. The citizens have nowhere to run to because the communities are all around it. Communities are all around it. I understand that efforts have been made to control the inferno. Control the inferno. But the citizens are still there. The villagers are nowhere to pack to. And they are living side by side this facility. And in fact, living side by side with all other facilities flaring gas. If you go to even government house, where you've been there severally, in government, you see there in the governor's office or residence, and you'll be seeing the flare stations all around. Sometimes those communities don't even know the difference between daylight and night, because the flaring is continuous. But that is money that is flared, but that is what has been going on in this country. Every time they will come and review deadline to stop gas flaring, but it's not done. So that flaring is going on, and that's the same fate that the communities in that Bahrain-Ubie area are currently suffering from. But I understand that the inferno has been brought under control. And if it explodes, because it is gas, once there is explosion and fire, it moves with the wind. So it's a terrible development, and it could have been worse. It could have been worse. The casualty rate and the level of destruction of communities and so on could have been far worse, because it's going with the wind, catching fire, moving with the wind. So I thank my dear colleague who brought this motion. And even for this facility, it may interest you to know that Shell, the major partner that's running this facility, they were not even paying ground rents or any kind of even tax to the state. I had to send a bill when the mover was my speaker for 8 years, almost, to make law, and then to make a case for even ground rents and tax to be paid. But I'm happy that I was informed some 2-3 months ago that the fight we started, that Shell had considered and that they had paid the first tax to the state, just about 3 months ago, which they challenged, but they settled out of court, luckily. That's what the government informed me. So that is the situation we are managing. So I will advise when you come to the prayers that this Senate will have to, maybe the committees, relevant committees, will have to conduct an inquiry, not the executive, because we don't believe that the executive understands the challenges that our people have been suffering all these years. But maybe if the joint committees look into the matter, we can have a report to look at and then interface with NMPC, now whatever it is called, and then the operators and the regulatory bodies to see what steps can be taken to determine the adequacy of the measures that have been taken, and also steps that can forestall further development. Mr. President and my dear colleagues, thank you very much for your sympathy and understanding, but this is the fate that we have been suffering in the national interest, the contributions, not just Bayelsa, not just Bana Ube, but all the producing communities and states and local governments in the Niger Delta. Thank you, Mr. President.
Dixon, this is a very worrisome motion because first of all, the facility brings serious foreign exchange to Nigeria because it is from there that the gas is processed and sent to the Bonny terminal for export. So a very big source of foreign exchange earnings for our country. And on the 14th of May, as he said, the explosion occurred, causing serious panic to the residents and widespread poisonous gaseous infusion into the atmosphere. And then, like you observed, because the people have no place to run to, otherwise they go into the Atlantic Ocean. They have to live with it, breathe the air. Those who had no asthma will now have asthma. And those who had no cancer will now have cancer. And this, for me, even the corporate social responsibilities that ought to be undertaken by the operator, in this case, NMPC through Shell, have been, sidelined until you had to go to court to struggle for them to even pay the ground rent. I think the good news is that the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration is a corrective regime and will definitely look into this. This must have gone on for the past 50 years. And unless you visit the area, you cannot understand. That is Niger Delta. So we will also bring this to the notice of Mr. President. He's barely almost 1 year in office, and he's very determined to do things differently. So he will look into the plight of the oil-producing areas, not just Bayelsa. And this kind of incident is one that I know he will not tolerate. Because in many places where crude oil is produced, they also have standards. They have standards. So people don't do things anyhow. They take cognizance of the possible fallout of oil exploration and exploitation. And where they feel, they pay billions in compensation to the communities. The motion fell short of asking that the operators should pay billions to compensate the people who are being injured, because you may never reclaim life. So let's look at the prayers and see whether we can make something out of it. But on behalf of the 10 Senate, we send our condolences to the families who must have lost their loved ones and to all the victims of this unfortunate explosion. Prayer 1. Call on the government to immediately investigate and ascertain the cause of the explosion as well as its effect. Any amendment? Amendment, yes.
To immediately investigate and ascertain the cause and magnitude of the explosion as well as its effect by setting up a joint committee of the Senate that consists of the Committee on Gas, Host Communities, Upstream, and Environment, and report back to the Senate within 4 weeks.
And possibly downstream.
And possibly downstream. I saw some.
Yes,
I saw Ahmed.
The civil senator high-powered committee, made up of the Committee on Upstream, Committee on Gas, Committee on Downstream, and also the Senate Committee on Environment, to immediately commence investigation into the remote and immediate causes and possible effects of this explosion, and then report back to the Senate within a specific time. Do you second the motion?
Mr. President, sir, my name is Adams. The Senate will not be calling on itself. Rather, we just say that the Senate, through its committees on, so I hope that can be.
In his direction, is saying that the Senate should immediately direct its committees on, let's mention them, petroleum upstream, gas, yes, downstream, host communities, and environment, to immediately commence investigation. And right, it's good to make it so that it will not be unwieldy. So unless you are going to set it up like ad hoc committee, in which case you would take the chairman and the vice, and then so you don't have more than 12 people doing the investigation for optimal results. What's your opinion?
Yeah.
They can commence investigation before, because some of the committees have up to 10, 15 members. So if you bring all together, you may end up with a 60-man committee. But we want results, and we want representation. So you can recraft the amendment. Recraft the amendment.
Comprising of the chairman and the vice chairman for various committees, such as all the committees involved on petroleum, downstream, upstream, gas, and earth.
Environment.
And Niger Delta.
Environment, Niger Delta.
Yes.
Then host communities.
And host communities.
And then health.
Yes. I so move, Your Excellency.
Yes. The prayer 1 has been amended to read that the Senate do constitute an ad hoc committee made up of the chairman and vice chairman of the committees on petroleum upstream, petroleum downstream, Senate Committee on Gas, Senate Committee on Host Communities, Senate Committee on Health, and Senate Committee on Environment to immediately commence investigation into the remote and immediate causes and effects of this major explosion and revert to the Senate within 2 weeks. Those in support of the motion as moved, of the amendment as moved and seconded, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Call on the government to adopt measures for the protection of the environment from further degradation, as well as for the enhanced protection of these and other national economic assets for the purpose of preventing the... I think this prayer 2, in my view, will be subsumed into the investigation. But do we leave it as a single prayer? Or do we add it as part of the terms of reference for the ad hoc committee? It seems to be a difficult situation. Okay, those in support of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say, okay, amendment, Senator Binus. Read that we should call on the federal government to adopt measures for the protection of the environment from further degradation and also to enhance protection of other national economic assets and to prevent further recurrence of this kind of situation. Those in support of prayer 2 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3. Call on the government and the operator of the pipeline to provide medical assistance and relief materials to the affected people. Those in support of prayer 2? Yes, Senator Yaradua.